everyone, the Flying Scotsman here, and welcome to this video. Now, at the time of recording this video, Microsoft Windows 7 is due to turn 10 years old any day. On October the 23rd, 2009, Microsoft succeeded what a lot of people believe to be one of the worst versions of Windows, with what people, myself included, believe to be one of the best versions of Windows. But why was it that way? How did Windows 7 come about? What was it that people wanted from it? And why was it so popular? Why does it remain to be so popular? Why is it that when Windows 7 goes out of support next year, are a lot of people going to lament its demise? Well, in this video, I hope to go through all of this, and we will find out why, if Microsoft's marketing people are to be believed, Windows 7 was everyone's idea. So, Microsoft Windows 7 then. Well, what is it? It's a PC operating system that, as we know, was produced by Microsoft. And it was part of the Windows NT family of operating systems, released to manufacturing on July the 22nd, 2009. Actually became generally available on October the 22nd, 2009, less than 3 years after the release of its predecessor, Windows Vista. Windows 7's server counterpart, Windows Server 2008 R2, was released at the same time. Microsoft ended mainstream support for Windows 7 on January the 13th, 2015, but extended support will not end until January the 14th in 2020. Windows 7 was primarily intended to be an incremental upgrade to Microsoft Windows, intended to address Windows Vista's poor critical reception while maintaining hardware and software compatibility. And Windows 7 continued improvements on the Windows Aero introduced in Windows Vista, with the addition of a redesigned taskbar that allows applications to be pinned to it, and a new window management feature. Other new features were added to the operating system, including the libraries component in Windows Explorer, which allow you to group various folders together, so documents or videos or pictures and what have you. The new file sharing system, Home Group, and support for multi-touch input was also added. There was also a new Action Center interface, which was added to provide an overview of system security and maintenance information, and tweaks were made to the user account control system to make it less intrusive. Now, Windows 7 also shipped with updated versions of several stock applications. Internet Explorer 7, for example, was updated to Internet Explorer 8. Windows Media Player 11 was updated to Windows Media Player 12, which was not actually available for previous versions of Microsoft Windows. And Windows Media Center also got an update. In contrast to Windows Vista, Windows 7 was generally praised by critics who considered the operating system to be a major improvement over its predecessor due to its increased performance, its more intuitive interface, with particular praise devoted to the new taskbar, fewer user account control pop-ups, which were the bane of a lot of Vista users' lives, and other improvements made across the platform. Now, Windows 7 was a major success for Microsoft, even prior to its official release. Pre-order sales for 7 on the online retailer Amazon.com had surpassed previous records. In just 6 months, over 100 million copies had been sold worldwide, increasing to over 630 million licenses by July 2012. As of October 2019, 29.39 of traditional PCs running Windows are running Windows 7, and thus 23% of all traditional PCs, which still has over 60% of the market share in some countries, and is the most used version in many countries, mostly some in Africa. Windows 10 is by now the most popular on all continents after overtaking Windows 7 in Africa. Now, I've got to say myself, when I tested Windows 7 Beta 1 in, I can't even mind if it was very late 2008 or very, very early 2009, I was actually still at university at the time, and I just actually came back to university after the Christmas holidays, downloaded a copy of Windows 7 Beta 1. I'd also downloaded the 64-bit version of the screen magnifier that I was using at the time called ZoomText. Finally, they'd actually went and released a 64-bit version. But then Windows 7 came out. And not only did the 64-bit version of the ZoomText magnifier work, but Windows 7 had its own full screen magnifier, similar to that in Mac OS X. And that was, for me, the price of admission. Honestly, you should have seen me throughout 2009. I mean, I was there in January 2009 going, I'm ready. I'm ready for Windows 7. It's ready. Bring it on. Bring it on. I'm ready for it. Come on. Although, thinking back, I'm glad that Microsoft did take the extra time to actually hone it into the operating system that we know and love today. Now, originally a version of Windows codenamed Blackcomb was planned as the successor to Windows XP and Windows Server 2003. Major features were planned for Blackcomb, including an emphasis on searching and querying data, and an advanced storage system named WinFS to enable such scenarios. However, an interim minor release codenamed Longhorn was announced for 2003, delaying the development of Blackcomb. By the middle of 2003, however, Longhorn had acquired some of the features originally intended for Blackcomb. After 3 major malware outbreaks, the Blaster, Nachi, and So Big Worms exploited flaws in Windows operating systems within a short period in August 2003, Microsoft changed its development priorities, putting some of Longhorn's major development work on hold while developing new service packs for Windows XP and Windows Server 2003. Development of Longhorn, or Windows Vista as it came to be known, was also restarted and thus delayed. In August 2004, a number of features were cut from Longhorn. Blackcomb was renamed Vienna in early 2006. When released, Windows Vista was criticised for its long development time, performance issues, spotty compatibility with existing hardware and software on launch, changes affecting the compatibility of certain PC games, and unclear assurances by Microsoft that certain computers shipping with XP prior to launch would be Vista capable, which led to a class action lawsuit. As such, adoption of Vista, in comparison to XP, remained somewhat low. In July 2007, 6 months following the public release of Vista, it was reported that the next version of Windows would then be codenamed Windows 7, with plans for a final release within 3 years. Bill Gates, in an interview with Newsweek, suggested that Windows 7 would be more user-centric. Gates later said that Windows 7 would also focus on performance improvements. It was also stated that Windows Vista users migrating to Windows 7 would not find the kind of device compatibility issues they encountered while migrating from Windows XP. There had been some confusion over naming the product Windows 7, while versioning it as 6.1 to indicate its similar build to Vista and increase compatibility with applications that only check major version numbers, similar to Windows 2000 and Windows XP, both having 5.x version numbers. The first external release to select Microsoft partners came in January 2008 with Milestone 1, build 6519. Speaking about Windows 7 on October the 16th, 2008, Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer confirmed compatibility with Windows Vista and Windows 7, indicating that Windows 7 would be a refined version of Windows Vista. At PDC 2008, the Professional Developers Conference, Microsoft demonstrated Windows 7 with its reworked taskbar. On December the 27th, 2008, the Windows 7 beta was leaked onto the internet via BitTorrent. According to a performance test by ZDNet, Windows 7 beta beat both Windows XP and Vista in several key areas, including boot and shutdown time, and working with files such as loading documents. Other areas did not beat XP, including PC Pro benchmarks for typical Office activities and video editing, which remain identical to Vista and slower than XP. On January the 7th, 2009, the 64-bit version of the Windows 7 beta, build 7000, was leaked onto the web, with some torrent being infected with a Trojan. At CES 2009, Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer announced the Windows 7 beta build 7000 had been made available for download to MSDN and TechNet subscribers in the format of an ISO image. The stock wallpaper of the beta version contained a digital image of the beta fish. The release candidate build 7100 became available for MSDN and TechNet subscribers and Connect program participants on April the 30th, 2009. On May the 5th, 2009, it became available for the general public, although it had also been leaked onto the internet via BitTorrent. The release candidate was available in 5 languages and expired on June the 1st, 2010, with shutdowns every 2 hours, starting March the 1st, 2010. Microsoft stated that Windows 7 would be released to the general public on October the 22nd, 2009. Microsoft released Windows 7 to MSDN and TechNet subscribers on August the 6th, 2009 at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Microsoft announced that Windows 7, along with Windows Server 2008 R2, was released to manufacturing on July the 2nd, 2009. Windows 7 RTM is build 7600.16.385. .0 907 13 dash 1255, which was compiled on July the 13th, 2009, and was declared the final RTM build after passing all of Microsoft's tests internally. So, before we go any further, let's have a look at the predecessor of Windows 7, Windows Vista. So folks, welcome to Windows Vista. We were here about 2.5 years ago. But here we are. This is Microsoft's latest operating system before Windows 7 came out. You have the beautiful Windows Vista wallpaper, translucent taskbar, as you may remember, and you have the gadgets that, while they can be moved, they generally like to dock onto the side of the display. Now, you can do that in Windows 7 as well, but you really didn't need to have this sidebar arrangement going on. So we can go into the start menu. Now this was the first iteration of Windows with a start menu like this. So instead of having a cascading menu or cascading menus for all the different things like all programs and all your program groups, so to speak, you had it all appeared on the left side of this menu. And there's your control panel. Obviously, you had the category view, or you had the classic view. So yeah, that's Windows Vista for you. Obviously, you've got the translucent title bar and window borders that become kind of opaque, but still kind of glassy, kind of looking. If you maximise the window, I've always liked that in Windows Vista. I must admit, I always kind of like that. Well, dark teal by default, I guess. Teal. I've got no games installed on this Vista install. So you had, obviously you had the arrow peak in Windows Vista. I remember one of my former lecturers actually saying about Windows Vista, it would be neat if you had a TV tuner program, like showing TV, and then you could just kind of peek at it. Which is quite neat, but obviously if you leave this, then it will eventually shut up and go away. Now, Windows Vista obviously did come with Media Player 11, except that in Windows Vista, unlike XP, it was actually translucent, but like the title bar becomes opaque if you maximize it, and then obviously you get your little control panel if you minimize Media Player. Now, Windows Vista, it let you customize your colors. So naturally, you had a selection of colors that were prescribed, I guess, by Vista. But obviously, you could make your own, or you could have the old-fashioned Windows properties. Do you look at that? And then you got some neat screensavers. Now, the themes on Windows Vista, it was still using the old Windows XP way of getting themes. So that was something. You still had the old Windows XP desktop themes thing, and everything to do with your display, and actually, interestingly enough, your sound and mouse pointers were in this personalization control panel. But even your actual display settings that allows you to change the resolution and what have you was in this control panel, so to speak. So a lot of the things that Windows Vista had were carried over from XP. So, oh wait, nope, Microsoft Paint. Yeah. Microsoft Paint, now that's an interesting one, because it was carried over from XP, but the colour palette was changed slightly, and it was actually put up at the top rather than down at the bottom as it had been for so many years. And of course, WordPad is exactly the same as it's been since Windows 2000. Obviously had your different character sets. Help make Windows better. What, by inserting a Windows 7 disk? Yeah, I know that was bad. And of course, you got your photo gallery, which is... I quite liked this, actually. I very much liked the Windows Vista photo gallery application. On home premium versions of Windows Vista, you got the DVD Maker. You got Movie Maker in Vista Professional, but you got other things like DVD Maker and Media Center. Unfortunately, I can't show you Media Center because it's Windows Vista Business that we have on this machine. Suffice it to say, though, it was actually an upgrade on XP's Media Center. This is one of the things that Vista did get right. It did get a lot of things right, and there were a lot of things that it was improved over its XP counterpart. Like, for example, wireless networking just worked a lot better. There was... I know there was other things. Like I said, photograph management, you had this wee guy. That was pretty good. And it just looked nice, did Vista. Really did. Looked very good. Only problem was, there was just no compatibility with anything. And how's that ended up on there? I don't remember putting that there. Oh well. There was not really the compatibility with everything that we would have needed. Oh, here's a blast from the past. Windows Live Messenger download. Yeah, that doesn't work anymore. Also, apparently it's time to update my browser. Who knew? An Internet Explorer 7. Yeah, there you go. Lovely. But yeah, no, Windows Vista. I mean, I started using Zoom Text, which is a piece of software for screen magnification, and it just didn't work with Vista. Now, I'd got my copy on December the 18th, 06. Vista came out in January the 30th, 2007. Now, this wasn't all entirely Microsoft's fault. I do blame AI Squared, who at the time made Zoom Text. Everything's owned now by Freedom Scientific, who make job access without speech, with speech. Yeah, no, they went from 9.0 to 9.1, which it did add a couple of things like support for multiple monitors, but support for Office 2007 and Windows Vista. That was a paid update. I was not happy. Suffice it to say, had I been offered the chance of a copy of Zoom Text that fell off of the back of a BitTorrent lorry back in 2007, I would have taken that. I would have jumped at the chance because, in my opinion, you don't deserve to get paid if you do. If you pull shit like that. I'm sorry, you just don't. However, that said, I did get a legitimate copy. Still have the disc somewhere. So yeah. BitTorrent. Who actually uses the BitTorrent client anymore? I think, yeah. I mean, torrents are still very much a thing today. You know, you'd get Linux distros and all sorts via torrent. You know, not just illegal things, but BitTorrent itself just sounds like such a mid-2000s word. Jings. But yeah, this is Microsoft Windows Vista. It laid down the groundwork for what Windows 7 would become. I think there is part of me, and I hate to admit this, but there is a part of me that feels that if we'd have been given Windows 7 in January 2007 instead of Vista, we would still have faced a lot of the same problems, what with compatibility and and with the speed of the operating system. Maybe not as much as we did with Vista, but certainly there was compatibility was just not there. A lot of hardware manufacturers just sat around. So Vista had came out and wasn't even usable. I mean, there was a lot of computers on the shop floor in PC World. I went to actually look at Windows Vista at PC World because I discovered that there was one within walking distance from from where I was living at the time. So I walked along to have a look at PC World, have a look at the hardware there, had a look at some of the computers, and there was a bunch of machines running Windows Vista Home Basic. No Aero at all. I mean, even in Vista Home Basic, you did get the Windows Aero user interface. It was just, you just didn't get the transparency, so it would look like this, which I think is absolutely fine. But yeah, no, you didn't get Aero or anything like that. You just, and the drivers, they were just basically ones that Microsoft had installed. It was almost like someone had went round with a Vista upgrade disc and been like, "You're upgrade this computer to Windows Vista, so that's not gonna do." And yeah, nobody was ready for it, even though we'd waited about 5.5 years from the launch of XP to Windows Vista. Nobody was ready for Windows Vista. So that is Vista, though. So let's shut it down. To do that, we have to go to Start, and that button. No, that'll just put your computer to sleep. Yes, you can set it to shut down, and that's what I used to do all the time, every Vista install. But no, that's the sleep button. So to get to shut down, you have to go here, and then click to shut down. Nice idea, Microsoft. Okay, sorry about that. Ugh. Anyway, Jings, I thought we'd all forgotten about that. So, among Windows 7's new feature, well, let's talk about Windows 7's new features, shall we? Among Windows 7's new features are advances in touch and handwriting recognition, support for virtual hard disks, improved performance on multi-core processors, which was definitely prolific in 2009, improved boot performances, direct access and kernel improvements, Windows 7 support for systems using multiple heterogeneous graphics cards from different vendors, a new version of Windows Media Center, a gadget for Windows Media Center, improved media features, XPS Essentials Pack, the Windows PowerShell being included, and a redesigned calculator with multi-line capabilities including programmer and statistics modes, along with unit conversion for length, weight, temperature, and several others. Many new items have been added to the control panel, including ClearType Text Tuner, Display Color Calibration Wizard, Gadgets, Recovery, Troubleshooting, Workspaces Center, Location, and other sensors, Credential Manager, Biometric Devices, System Icons, and Display. Windows Security Center has been renamed to the Windows Action Center, Windows Health Center and Windows Solution Center in earlier builds, which encompasses both security and maintenance of the computer. Ready Boost on 32-bit editions now supports up to 256 gigs of extra allocation. Windows 7 also supports images in RAW image format through the addition of the Windows Imaging Component enabled image decoders, which enables raw image thumbnails, previewing, and metadata display in Windows Explorer, plus full-size viewing and slideshows in Windows Photo Viewer and Windows Media Center. The taskbar, let's talk about the taskbar, because that has seen the biggest visual changes. Where the old quick launch toolbar has been replaced by the ability to pin applications to the taskbar. Buttons for pinned applications are integrated with taskbar buttons. These buttons also enable jump lists to allow easy access to common tasks. So if you right-click on something, then like Internet Explorer, you'd probably get options for navigating pages. Media Player would, for example, give you the ability to play various things, play media, or control the playback of your media. Just as an example. The revamped taskbar also allows the reordering of taskbar buttons. To the far right of the taskbar, and to the right of the system clock is a small rectangular button that serves as the Show Desktop icon. By default, hovering over this button makes all visible windows transparent for a wee look at the desktop. In touch-enabled displays such as touchscreens, tablet PCs, etc., this button is slightly wider in order to accommodate being pressed by a finger. Clicking this button minimises all of the windows, and clicking it a second time restores them. Window management in Windows 7 has several new features. We have Arrow Snap, which maximises a window when it's dragged to the top of the screen. Dragging windows to the left or the right edges of the screen allows users to snap software windows to either side of the screen, such that the windows take up half the screen. When a user moves windows that were snapped or maximized using Snap, the system restores their previous state. Snap functions can also be triggered with keyboard shortcuts. Shake hides all the inactive windows when the active Windows title bar is dragged back and forth rapidly, metaphorically shaken. Windows 7 includes 13 additional sound schemes titled Afternoon, Calligraphy, Characters, Cityscape, Delta, Festival, Garden, Heritage, Landscape, Quirky, Raga, Savannah, and Sonata. Internet Spade, Internet Backgammon, and Internet Checkers, which were removed from Windows Vista, were restored in Windows 7. Users are able to enable or customize many more Windows components than was possible in Windows Vista. New additions to this list of components include Internet Explorer 8, Windows Media Player 12, Windows Media Center, Windows Search, and Windows Gadget Platform. A new version of Microsoft Virtual PC, newly renamed as Windows Virtual PC, was made available for Windows 7 Professional, Enterprise, and Ultimate editions. This allowed multiple Windows environments, including Windows XP mode, to run on the same machine. Windows XP mode runs Windows XP in a virtual machine and displays applications within separate windows on the Windows 7 desktop, a wee bit like the Unity feature on VMware. Furthermore, Windows 7 supports the mounting of a virtual hard disk as a normal data storage, and the bootloader delivered with Windows 7 can boot the Windows system from a VHD. However, this ability is only available in the Enterprise and Ultimate editions. The Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP, of Windows 7 is also enhanced to support real-time multimedia applications, including video playback and 3D games, thus allowing the use of DirectX 10 in remote desktop environments. The 3 applications limit, previously present in the Windows Vista and Windows XP Starter editions, has been removed from Windows 7. All editions include some new and improved features, such as Windows Search, security features, and some features new to Windows 7 that originated within Vista. Optional BitLocker and drive encryption is included with Windows 7 Ultimate and Enterprise. Windows Defender is included. Microsoft Security Essentials antivirus software is a free download. All editions include Shadow Copy, which, every day or so, System Restore uses to take an automatic previous version snapshot of user files that have changed. Backup and Restore have also been improved, and the Windows Recovery environment, installed by default, replaces the optional Recovery Console of Windows XP. A new system known as libraries was added for file management. Users can aggregate files from multiple folders into a library. By default, libraries for categories such as documents, pictures, music, and video are created, consisting of the user's personal folder and the public folder for each. The system is also used as part of a new home networking system known as Home Group. Devices are added to the network with a password, and files and folders can be shared with other devices in the home group or with specific users. The default libraries, along with printers, are shared by default, but the personal folder is set to read only, accessed by other users, and the public folder can be accessed by anyone. Windows 7 includes improved globalization support through a new extended linguistic services API to provide multilingual support, particularly in Ultimate or Enterprise editions. Microsoft has also implemented better support for solid-state drives, including a new trim command, and Windows 7 is able to identify a solid-state drive uniquely. Native support for USB 3 is not included due to delays in the finalization of the standard. Certain capabilities that were part of Vista are no longer present or have been changed, resulting in the removal of certain functionalities. These include the classic Start menu user interface, some taskbar features, Windows Explorer features, Media Player features, Windows Ultimate Extras, Search button, and Inkball. For applications bundled with Windows Vista, the Windows Photo Gallery, Movie Maker, Windows Calendar, and Windows Mail are not included with Windows 7 and were replaced by Windows Live branded versions as part of the Windows Live Essentials suite, which was made available for previous versions of Windows, including XP. Support for Windows 7 without Service Pack 1 ended on April the 9th, 2013, requiring users to update in order to continue receiving updates and support. Microsoft ended the sale of new retail copies of Windows 7 in October 2014, and the sale of new OEM licenses for Windows 7 Home Basic, Home Premium, and Ultimate ended on October the 31st, 2014. Mainstream support ended for Windows 7 on January the 13th, 2015, and extended support for Windows 7 will end on January the 14th, 2020. In August 2019, Microsoft announced it will be offering a free extended security update to some business users. On September the 7th, 2018, Microsoft announced a paid extended security update service that will offer additional updates for Windows 7 Professional and Enterprise for up to 3 years after the end of extended support. In March 2019, Microsoft announced that it would display notifications to users informing them of the upcoming end of support and direct users to a website urging them to purchase a Windows 10 upgrade or a new device. In September 2019, Microsoft announced that it would provide free security updates for Windows 7 on federally certified voting machines through the 2020 United States elections. Windows 7 Service Pack 1 was announced on March 18th, 2010. A beta was released on July the 12th, 2010, with the final version being released to the public on February the 22nd, 2011. At the time of the release, it was not made mandatory. It was available via a Windows Update, direct download, or by ordering the Windows 7 Service Pack 1 DVD. The Service Pack is on a much smaller scale than those released for previous versions of Windows, particularly Windows Vista. Windows 7 Service Pack 1 adds support for Advanced Vector Extensions, a 256-bit instruction set for processors, and improves IKE v2 by adding additional identification fields such as email ID to it. In addition, it had support for Advanced Format 512E, as well as additional Identity Federation services. Windows 7 Service Pack 1 also resolves a bug related to HDMI audio and another related to printing XPS documents. In Europe, the automatic nature of the browserchoice.eu feature was dropped in Windows 7 Service Pack 1 in February 2011 and remained absent for 14 months despite Microsoft reporting that it was still present, subsequently described by Microsoft as a technical error. As a result, in March 2013, the European Commission fined Microsoft €561 million to deter companies from reneging on settlement promises. The platform update for Windows 7 Service Pack 1 and Windows Server 2008 R2 Service Pack 1 was released in February 26, 2013. After a pre-release version had been released on November the 5th, 2012, it is also included with Internet Explorer 10 for Windows 7. This includes enhancements to Direct 2D, Direct Write, Direct 3D, Windows Imaging Component, Windows Advanced Rasterization Platform, Windows Animation Manager, XPS Document API, H.264 Video Decoder, and JPEG XR Decoder. However, support for Direct 3D 11.1 is limited as the update does not include DXGIWDDM 1.2 from Windows 8. In May 2016, Microsoft released a convenience roll-up update for Windows 7 Service Pack 1 and Windows Server 2008 R2 Service Pack 1, which contains all patches released between the release of Service Pack 1 and April 2016. The roll-up is not available via Windows Update and must be downloaded manually. The package can also be integrated into a Windows 7 installation image. Since October 2016, all security and reliability updates are cumulative. Downloading and installing updates that address individual problems is no longer possible. But the number of updates that must be downloaded to fully update the operating system is significantly reduced. So, now that we've learnt a bit about Windows 7, let's go and take a look at it. Right, I'm starting here with the Windows 7 demonstration because there is something I want to show you, and I'm sorry you aren't going to see my desktop background just for the time being. So, whereas Windows Vista had really no splash screen to speak of, apart from the rolling green progress bars, Windows 7, well, you got this instead, if your screen was capable of displaying a resolution of at least 1024 by 768, which a lot of netbooks at the time weren't. So they would get the Vista startup screen. And oh dear, updates galore. But that's another thing. With Windows 7, you'd, if it needed to do anything, you'd still get this nice startup screen. While it was doing it. So this is going to take a couple of minutes. Yeah, I really did not think about that. Well, there we go. It was ready quicker than we knew it. And already, we're seeing quite a few changes here. Yes, we've still got the very beautiful Windows Aero transparency that everyone loved back in the day. I'm sorry, I love the Windows 7 desktop, I really do. It's still loading. there we go. So, what's different then? Well, by default, you don't get any gadgets at all on the desktop. You also get the new taskbar and Start Orb. More on that later. The icons are still very much the same as Windows Vista's. The network icon has changed. And yeah. Try to think if there's anything else. Oh yeah. Obviously the taskbar is now double wide-ish. So you have room for both the time and the date on the clock. You can change that back to single wide. And there are ways to actually change the behaviour of the taskbar to the old, so that it behaves more like the old taskbar. So for example, you could... I think there is a way to re-enable the quick launch toolbar. You can unpin things, obviously, and use that instead. And you can actually change it so that open applications do actually display their titles, as was the case in old versions of Windows. So, first off, let's talk about the gadgets then. So, if we want to get access to the gadgets, again, not recommended by Microsoft, what you do, you right-click on the desktop, go to Gadgets, and then boom, there we are. So, you could put a clock, you can stick that anywhere on the desktop, CPU meter. Oh yeah, the Media Center widget. So, yeah, we've got a whole bunch of gadgets. Now, if we did want to put them on the side, that's not a problem. We can always do that. Obviously, it still stays full size, but there are gadgets that still suit themselves more to setting on the side of the taskbar. But, like I said, because it's not really the most secure thing to do, and because my desktop looks untidy, I'm going to take these away again. Now, what I did used to do back in the day is I used to have a bunch of clocks on my Windows 7 desktop. So what I would do is set one clock to my time, then another clock to US Eastern Time, because I like to speak to people on the Eastern Seaboard. So, good idea to do that would be to, just set it to... Oopsie. Yeah, just set it to Eastern Time. Doom. There we go. And then I'd have maybe another clock that I would set to Central Time. I mean, these are the sorts of things that I guess you actually get to working out yourself. I mean, I know I do now. I knew very few people on Mountain Time, so but I do know someone in California, so I had I know a few people in California now, so I had clock set to Pacific Time. So there you go. I have a bunch of clocks, and now my desktop looks like something that is trying and failing to be a high-class London hotel that might be in the north of England. Anyway, so what about this new taskbar? The taskbar that I used to call the dock. Well, let's see how it works. I have applications on here, but none of them are running. So, what happens if I was to run one of these applications? Well, it draws a square around them. What happens if I was to run some applications? What happens if I was to run some applications that weren't docked to the taskbar, or pinned to the taskbar, rather? There, they appear, and now I have the option if I want to pin this to the taskbar, so that if I close Microsoft Works, it remains. Now, if I didn't want Works pinned to the taskbar, not a problem, just get rid of it. There we go. And that's how that works. Now, Windows 7 comes with Media Player 12. Which is basically a lot like Media Player 11, but slightly different, slightly tweaked, and was not available on any other versions of Windows. And I believe it is still actually included in Windows 10 to this day, although I'm pretty sure Microsoft will be deprecating. Well, they have pretty much deprecated it. They will probably be stripping it out at some point and moving us all onto the failed GNU Music. So, we've got Media Player. Now, do you remember the cute little mini Media Player control panel thing that we used to get? Not anymore. However, all is not lost if you wanted to change tracks and you were in Microsoft Microsoft Work? Just the one. Microsoft Word, if you were, let's say, doing your dissertation. Jings. Thus ends months and months of arduous study. Right. So, if you were working away in another program, you could just mouse over to the Media Player button. We've got arrow peak. But we also have various buttons that have been made available to us through arrow peak. So we can play a song, fast forward, or rewind. Now, I will say, I did prefer having the Media Player, the mini Media Player button panel, because there was more buttons. But, you know, this is what we got, and, you know, I guess we've gotten used to it, but this is why, well, I guess this is why I like having a multimedia keyboard, so I've got access to a lot of the things. Then again, you really don't need much. Apart from a stop button might be nice if you wanted to completely stop, because I'm OCD that way. And maybe a volume adjuster might be nice, because you might want to adjust the volume of the music, but not of my system entirely. That would have been nice if they'd have kept that, because that is something that I did use quite a bit. So let's take a look at... I realise now that I've been calling arrow peak the wrong thing. Arrow peak is this. The new way to show your desktop. But you've obviously still got the option to hover and look at the windows. They are actually bigger, these previews of open windows. Now let's take a look at another arrow feature that's new to Windows 7. Arrow Snap. So we've got Word and Media Player open. So let's say I wanted to watch a TV show on Media Player, I could snap that to the right and snap that to the left, so I can be there typing away in Microsoft Word, and I've got my TV show going. Totally still working. Yeah, I can totally work while watching The Simpsons. What do you mean I can't totally work while watching The Simpsons? But if I'm done with that, I can just move that and move that, and the window will take on its previous dimensions. Now, obviously, if I want to hide that I'm maybe watching something, I've maybe got this on pause, or maybe I just want to look at one window, what you can do is pick it up and literally shake it, and then all the other windows shut up and go away. And then shake it again, and they all come back. Now, I know that Aero Snap is probably used, but I'm not sure how much people use Aero Shake. They shake the window and make the others disappear. So, now that we've done all that, let's have a look at the start menu. As you can see, very, very similar to Windows Vistas. You have all your program groups open within this one window, and they open up like the navigation pane in Windows Explorer, just like Windows Vista. You still have things like anytime update, anytime upgrade. If you wanted new features on Windows, you could go to Vista Ultimate. Now, I am on Vista Professional here. Now, you'll notice that some things are missing. For example, the Windows Photo Gallery is missing, but that's okay. You could at the time download the Windows Live Photo Gallery. However, there's some things that have made an appearance. Windows DVD Maker. So this allows you to author DVDs back when computers en masse had optical drives. There we go. And Windows Media Center. New version for Windows 7, improved over the Vista version, which itself was an improvement over the 2005 version for Windows XP. And I could add a desktop gadget to access Internet TV if I wanted. Oops, I just hit yes. So this is very similar to Windows Vista's Media Center, but like I said, there have been improvements. So yeah, I mean, Windows Media Center is something that I did use quite a lot actually, and it was this version of Windows Media Center that led on as an update to Windows 8.1 systems. I think 8.0 as well, I can't even mind. But I did buy the Media Center pack for Windows 8.1, and I did add it to Windows 10 back in the day when you could still do that. I don't anymore. But this was the version, because Media Center pretty much was deprecated by Microsoft. Even though it was a brilliant 10-foot user interface. But we have Kodi now. So, guess we really don't need Microsoft offering. Even though it was the easier one to work with TV tuners. If you have a TV tuner, I totally understand people lamenting the demise of Media Center. So yeah, that's Windows 7's media features that for the first time are now the professional version. You really don't sacrifice much by going to the professional version over the premium version. If anything, Professional really is a superset of Home Premium. It's not just a different fork in the road, which actually makes it a wee bit pointless to upgrade to Ultimate unless you literally want the BitLocker capability and the option for installing Windows in multiple languages. If you want those things, then yeah, you do need Windows 7 Ultimate. If not, for most people, Windows 7 Professional would suffice. I know that it did for me, whereas I did go for Vista Ultimate. Now, when I had TechNet a few years ago, I did have Windows 7 Ultimate. And, it was really not much different to Windows 7 Professional. So, yeah. I guess you just have it just to have it. But obviously, those extra languages, they're going to take up about 34 gigs of space. I don't want to use all that disk space. I don't need to use all that disk space. So, we can take a look at the control panel. That's changed ever so slightly. So, yes, we have the category view. But instead of going to classic view, we can either view by large or small icons or category view. And yes, it is extremely webby. So Nathan Lineback disapproved. You have the devices and printer section, but in Windows 7 it had its own user interface for certain devices. So I'm not sure. I don't think I have any devices in here that would show that actually, which is a bit of a shame. But certain devices, if you double clicked on them, it would give you a wee page with options, things that you could do with the device. And if you had like a laptop or a desktop that had been branded in some way, then it could have its own Windows 7 experience. I know that my ThinkPad did, and there's all kinds of things from Lenovo that you can do with that. If I do get another Windows 7 ThinkPad, I will have to show you. So yeah, there's that. What else was there in Windows 7? Well, I guess the time has come to show you. Look what I can do, even in VMware. Yes. Here, for your perusal, is the full screen magnifier. Now, admittedly, it's not as good as a full page solution. If you have multiple monitors, it'll magnify them both. You can't magnify one monitor independently of another. But for a free bit of software, it is absolutely fantastic. You do have colour inversion if you want it. You can set how much a view changes when zooming in or out. I would leave that to 100% because otherwise the text starts to look a bit distorted. You can follow the mouse pointer, keyboard focus, or have magnifier follow the text insertion point. Now, Windows 7 was the only version of Windows where this worked properly, didn't jump about the screen. On all subsequent versions of Windows, it does just that. So I could be working away in Power Director, putting together this video, and then suddenly the magnifier starts jumping about and in a key, which is not helpful for me. But there you have it. The Windows magnifier. The Windows 7 magnifier. Absolutely fantastic. And yes, it was worth the price of admission to me. I know. I'm very easily impressed. I did very much like this operating system. I know I'm not the only one. A lot of people are really, really going to miss this version of Windows. No games on here, are there? I didn't install them. But yeah, I absolutely loved Windows 7. I do think it is a fantastic operating system, a fantastic version of Windows, and it's testament to the fact that Microsoft can actually put together something. So let's have a look at WordPad and Paint, because I've had a look at them in Windows Vista, and I'm pretty sure, yes, it is this version of Windows where they've inherited the ribbon user interface from Office 2007 and 2010, although they look more like 2010 and 2007. We have the newer colour palette from Windows Vista. For the first time, we have these placeholders where we can make our own colours. So, I could make a lovely deep kind of a teal colour there. That's nice. And there we go. It saved it. Or I could make some kind of purple. Boom! It saved that. Well, very similar to that purple, but not the same. That's important. And it actually, if you hover over the colours, it actually says what colours there are. So, yeah, Paint has changed quite a bit, and you've even got the Microsoft Office style file menu. And if we take a look at WordPad, and now you see that it too has the ribbon interface, and they've actually made it, in my opinion, easier to do certain things like inserting pictures or making new drawings. It's just quite a nice experience. There's also highlight. It's still basically WordPad, but there are just a couple of features that make it a bit more pleasant to use if WordPad is what you have. You also have sticky notes. I think you have that in Vista though. Another thing that I quite like is, another thing that I think that I should show you is, if you right click on certain icons, you have various things that correspond with them. So you have, if I right click on files, you've got documents, pictures, music, and video, so you can jump straight to these things. Same situation if you have a program that supports it in the start menu. We have Getting Started, for example. If it's in your recent program list, some programs will put a wee right arrow. I think Firefox does now and has done for quite some time, and it'll show you options, things that you can do with the program, and will allow you to do, these most common tasks straight from the menu. I wonder what would happen if I right click. Yep, it's the same list. So I put Getting Started on the taskbar and got the same tasks that I can do that would be there in the start menu. Yeah, I do quite like that. That's a very nice feature to have. So that is Windows 7. That's an overview of Windows 7. Very, very pleased with it. Very happy with Windows 7. It's and I will be very sad to see it go, if I'm going to be completely honest. Now, before I finish up this demonstration, I wanted to show you the new personalization control panel. It has been changed even from Vista. So whereas themes was an afterthought on Windows Vista, and they were like, oh, we'll just put in the ones from XP, or just put in the themes control panel for XP. This starts with the themes control panel. So you've got arrow themes. So there's various themes that come with it. This one, I think, must be... I think this one must be localized, because I've seen United States there, and, in American installs. So, because I'm in the UK at the moment, I've got this theme. And just as a bonus point, there's Dunnottar Castle as well, which is not too far from me. And then I have basic and high contrast themes. And so I've got the basic Windows 7 theme, and I've got the classic Windows theme and the high contrast themes. You can change your desktop background. Can change the colour. There's a lot more choices of default colour on Windows 7. I can disable transparency, and I can also make my own colours if I want to. Can also change the sound and add a screensaver. But you'll notice what's not on here. You'll notice that the resolution, the display settings where you can change resolution, is not in this control panel. And changing the mouse pointer has been demoted to a wee link on the left hand side. But that's not an issue. None of these things are an issue, really. In order to change your display resolution, and it's probably wise that Microsoft put that kind of separate, because, if you just want to customize your desktop and make it look pretty, you might not want to be able to get into the options where you're changing your screen resolution so easily. That's probably not a good idea. Yes, it's to do with the screen, but slightly different. So if you wanted to get into the options where you can change your screen resolution, what you do is you right click on the desktop and go to screen resolution, and there you go. And you can change all your display settings, and there you go. See what video cards you have. Windows 7 also has the Windows Experience Index. So I've not done that here, but it is here if I wanted to. But yeah, that's Windows 7. Now, if I wanted to shut down, which I will because it's the end of the demonstration, quite easy to do. Click on Start, and look! The default button that's there is shut down. So, Microsoft really has actually put some thought into Windows 7. Waiting for background programs to close. So there you have it. Now that was a much better Windows experience, wasn't it? Anyway, so how was Windows 7 received? I very much enjoyed it. But what about everyone else? Well, Windows 7 received critical acclaim, with critics noting the increased usability and functionality when compared with its predecessor, Windows Vista. CNET gave Windows 7 Home Premium a rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars, stating that it is more than what Vista should have been, and it's where Microsoft needed to go. PC Magazine rated it a 4 out of 5, saying that Windows 7 is a big improvement over Vista, with fewer compatibility problems, a retooled taskbar, simpler home networking, and a faster startup. Maximum PC gave Windows 7 a 9 out of 10 and called Windows 7 a massive leap forward in usability and security, and praise the new taskbar is worth the price of admission alone. PC World called Windows 7 a worthy successor to Windows XP and said that speed benchmarks showed Windows 7 to be slightly faster than Windows Vista. PC World also named Windows 7 as one of the best products of the year. In its review of Windows 7, Engadget said that Microsoft had taken a strong step forward with Windows 7 and reported that speed is one of Windows 7's major selling points, particularly for the netbook sets. Laptop Magazine gave Windows 7 a rating of 4 out of 5 stars and said that Windows 7 makes computing more intuitive, offered better overall performance, including a modest to dramatic increase in battery life on laptop computers. TechRadar gave Windows 7 a rating of 5 out of 5 stars, concluding that it combines the security and architectural improvements of Windows Vista with a better performance than XP can deliver on today's hardware. No version of Windows is ever perfect, but Windows 7 really is the best of release of Windows yet. None of these magazines hail from the accents of the places I gave them, by the way. I don't know. The New York Times, USA Today, and the Wall Street Journal, and the Telegraph also gave Windows 7 favourable reviews. Some Windows Vista Ultimate users have expressed concern over Windows 7's pricing and upgrade options. Windows Vista Ultimate users wanting to upgrade from Windows Vista to Windows 7 must either pay $219.99 to upgrade to Windows 7 Ultimate, or perform a clean install, which requires them to reinstall all of their programs. The changes to user account control on Windows 7 were criticised for being potentially insecure, as an exploit was discovered, allowing untrusted software to be launched with elevated privileges by exploiting a trusted component. Peter Bright of Ars Technica argued that the way that Windows 7 UAC improvements have been made completely exempts Microsoft's developers from having to do that work themselves. With Windows 7, it's one rule for Redmond, another one for everyone else. Microsoft's Windows kernel engineer, Mark Rusinovich, acknowledged the problem, but noted that malware can also compromise a system when users agree to a prompt. So, what about the sales? Because, of course, as we all know, money talks. Money talks. Dirty cash, I want you. Dirty cash, I need you. Whoa. In July 2009, in only 8 hours, pre-orders of Windows 7 at Amazon.co.uk surpassed the demand with which Windows Vista had in its first 17 weeks. It became the highest grossing pre-order in Amazon's history, surpassing sales of previous record holder, the 7th Harry Potter book. After 36 hours, 64-bit versions of Windows 7 Professional and Ultimate editions sold out in Japan. 2 weeks after its release, its market share had surpassed that of Snow Leopard, released 2 months previously as the most recent update to Apple's macOS X operating system. According to Net Applications, Windows 7 reached a 4% market share in less than 3 weeks. In comparison, it took Windows Vista 7 months to reach the same mark. As of February 2014, Windows 7 had a market share of 47.49%, according to Net Applications. In comparison, Windows XP had a market share of 29.23%. On March 4th, 2010, Microsoft announced it had sold more than 90 million Windows 7 licenses. By April 23rd, 2010, Microsoft had sold more than 100 million copies in 6 months, which made it Microsoft's fastest selling operating system. As of June 23rd, 2010, Windows 7 had sold more than 150 million copies, which made it the fastest selling operating system in history, with 7 copies being sold every second. Based on worldwide data taken during June 2010 from Windows Update, 46% of Windows 7 PCs run the 64-bit edition of Windows 7. According to Stephen Baker of the MPD Group, during April 2010 in the United States, 77 PCs sold at retail were pre-installed with the 64-bit version of Windows 7. I mean, it really seemed to me, as an observer watching, that Windows 7 really was where hardware manufacturers actually started to preload the 64-bit version of Windows in favour of the 32-bit version. 3 months later, on January the 27th, 2011, Microsoft announced that total sales of 300 million copies of Windows 7. On July the 12th, 2011, the sales figure was refined to over 400 million end-user licenses and business installations. As of July the 9th, 2012, over 630 million licenses have been sold. This number includes licenses sold to OEMs for new PCs. So that is the story of Windows 7. So that is the story of Windows 7. But what about my experiences? What did I think of Windows 7? Well, Windows 7 for me was about the magnifier. That's what the price of admission was for me personally. Like I had said, I had thought Windows 7 ready, quite childishly I must admit, I had thought Windows 7 ready in January of 2009 when I tested it. However, when it did come out, I had pre-ordered it from the Ultimate Steel. Now, the Ultimate Steel actually was a website that offered discounted Microsoft Windows and Office software to students. I don't know if it's still going or not. I've not been a student since 2011. So, yeah. So, with all that said, I actually did pre-order Windows 7 from the Ultimate Steel. When it became available for download, I was actually still using the Beast as my primary machine at the time, so I actually set that to download and then went to my bed. Trouble is, the machine had actually went to sleep. I'd completely forgotten to stop it going to sleep, so the download failed. I then decided to reset the machine, reset the download, try again, and I went off to university, and by the time I came home, it had indeed downloaded. So, I had to go off somewhere for an appointment. I remember this. This is Windows 7. I mean, I was so excited, so I actually do remember what went on that day. Can't remember what I did this morning, but I can remember what I did on this day 10 years ago. I remember the weather was absolutely shite that day as well. So yeah, no, I remember what I was doing that day. I remember Windows 7 when it came out, blah, 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 blah. So I had to go for an appointment, so I actually set Windows 7 to install. Obviously, at the time, I had to install over my current version of Windows, which actually was Vista at the time. And, you know, when I came back from the appointment, Windows 7 had installed, and I got the new desktop, and all my widgets were actually still clung to the side. The gadgets, not bloody widgets, gadgets! All the gadgets were still clung to the side of the screen, even though Windows 7 did allow you to put the widgets anywhere and did not actually have a widget bar. I mean, Vista did as well to some kind of an extent, but on Windows 7 they didn't actually snap to a bar by default. the gadgets actually, in 2014, Microsoft actually dropped all support for gadgets and recommended that we don't use them and that they could potentially be insecure. In fact, Windows 7's gadgets, I think, were replaced by the live tiles in Windows 8. Which are still with us today, actually, in Windows 10. But, so, obviously I used Windows 7 on my main machine. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I also remember starting Media Center for the first time, and it was then that I realised that for the first time, while I'd always been able to get DVB, digital TV, through my PC using a Hop-Hog TV tuner, I'd never been able to access the digital interactive services on Windows. So, yeah, just not being able to do that. But suddenly I could. Suddenly I was getting a wee message inviting me to press the red button, as you often did on the BBC channels back then. So I did, and I found that I was able to actually access the BBC's digital TV services, which I thought was quite good in Media Centre. So, with that in mind, with everything, Windows 7's features, I did actually kind of go a bit crazy. I went and bought a couple of Windows 7 Home Premium DVDs at full price. You know, upgrade price, but still. I mean, I'd spent 30 quid on my professional license, which I'd used on my main machine, but then I bought a copy I had two machines at the time. I bought a copy to dual boot with macOS on my white MacBook that I had at the time, and I bought another copy for my ThinkPad R61i, which I had at the time. So I was just, I did use, I did very much like Windows 7, and I did jump in. I didn't so much as jump in as dive bombing. Like, just tucked and rolled, just, like, cuddled myself up into a wee ball and then just went... I was really excited about Windows 7. And then when I had my computer business in 2012, I found that a lot of my work was actually upgrading people from Windows Vista to Windows 7, and then upgrading people from Windows 8 to Windows 7. People were crazy, and myself included. I hated the start screen. I bloody hated it. I'm glad Microsoft doesn't do that anymore. It's just horrible bit of design for desktop machines. Just the UI people. When Windows 8 was being designed, I believe the UI people, they all must have been exiled somewhere. I didn't think transportation was still a thing, but it must have been in Redmond in 2012. So, I mean, I did move up to Windows 8 and 8.1. I did try Windows 8 for a wee bit, and I did find it actually booted quicker than Windows 7. And in 2014, I did actually eventually just go with Windows 8.1. And I did use the Start 8 program that gave me the Windows 7 style start menu. Now, with the new taskbar, for the first few weeks of having Windows 7, I actually mistakenly called it the dock. I guess it was kind of a Freudian slip in a way. But that's what I just used to call it, the dock, because it behaved so much like the dock on macOS. The only difference being the icons didn't automatically shrink themselves to fit. It's just a dock by any other name. You use any version of macOS 10, or just macOS as it's known now, and use the dock, and then come back and tell me that it's not got the same kind of feature sets as Windows 7's taskbar. Because it does. It's basically the same thing. Now, for Windows 7 Aero, I actually preferred Windows Vista Aero's thing where you maximised a window and it would actually make it a darker colour. You couldn't see the desktop through it. Windows 7, I mean, I guess I got used to it, but Windows 7, when it retained the lighter color for maximized windows, it just didn't. I don't know. I mean, it just didn't kind of feel right, with the. I don't know. I've gotten so used to Vista, but I mean, Windows 7, I'd kind of gotten used to that, like later on. But I guess now that we no longer have transparent or translucent title bars once again, I guess it would start looking strange to me again. But when Windows 7 goes out support in January 2020, I am going to miss it. I really am going to miss it. And a lot of people will. A lot of people miss XP. But, I think they're starting to find... I think people are mostly over XP now. We've had 5 years from the end of support in 2014 to get over it. Plus, we had all that time to actually get decent machines and what have you. And Windows 7 was different enough and to take advantage of the newer machines that we had. But Windows 10, a lot of people don't like it, and I can understand it. It's basically just one problem after another. I love Windows 10 when it came out, but they've just 1709 was a pretty good update after the third suit, which was 1607 and 1703. 1709 came out. That was a lot more tolerable, but it's just there's always problems with it, and the privacy concerns, and the fact that Microsoft forced it upon people. I mean, there was people who had machines that had Windows 7 on them, and they were perfectly fine with them, and then one day they'll get up, switch the computer on, and then boom, your new version of Windows is ready to use. I was like, what the hell's this? Why? Well, there's no need for that. I mean, by all means, offer it for free, which we were doing, which was good. But as for just upgrading people without their consent, you don't do that! If this had happened in the 90s, Microsoft would have been hung, drunk, and quartered by the Department of Justice. But, well, Windows 10, I'll save that for another video. So, come and tune in 2025 when we will be looking at 10 years of Windows 10. But for the meantime, I'd like to thank you all for watching my video. If you're wanting to see that Windows 10 video in 6 years, then please be sure to subscribe to my channel. And hit that bell for notifications wherever it is. Is it up there? Is it down there? I don't know. They keep changing the interface. Anyway, thank you for watching, and please join me for my next video. Cheery bye.